There's some breaking reporting from 404 Media that the Department of Justice has removed a study from their website showing that white supremacist and far-right violence continues to outpace all other types of terrorism and domestic violent extremism in the United States. The study was conducted by the National Institute of Justice and was hosted on a DOJ website and was taken down sometime after September 12th. I think the timing of that is quite interesting, especially in light of what J.D. Vance said the other day.
And while our side of the aisle certainly has its crazies, it is a statistical fact that most of the lunatics in American politics today are proud members of the far left.
Look, Shorty Pants, when you say something is a statistical fact and then don't bring any statistics to back up your claim. Wait. I was going to say something about bringing evidence to support your claim. I was going to talk about a logical argument and persuading people with the data, but we are in Donald Trump's post-truth politics world, where the men in power can just spew absolute bullshit straight out of their mouths, and they know that their followers will uncritically accept it. It takes 2 seconds to prove that J.D. Vance's claim is complete and utter hogwash. What? What is that, J.D.? According to the Anti-Defamation League, 71% of violent extremism in the United States comes from where? Where? The right wing. 26% Islamic extremism, and 3% from the left wing. 3%. And after Charlie Kirk's death, the DOJ has scrubbed their own study from their own website, showing that right-wing, white supremacist, far-right violence continues to outpace all other kinds of terrorism and domestic violence in the U.S. Weird. Again, Crouches and Spice said the other day, there is no alt-left pipeline in the United States, and that's completely true. There's several different forms of alt-right pipelines, but there is no radicalization to the alt-left in the United States. That's not a thing. There's the wellness to alt-right pipeline, the crunchy mom to alt-right pipeline. There is the QAnon to alt-right pipeline. There are all kinds of conspiracy theories. Evangelical Christianity to alt-right pipeline. There's the Jim Bro to alt-right pipeline. We could just go on and on and on about all of the various methods through which people get radicalized to the alt-right in the United States, and how the rhetoric from the right is consistently not only violent, but dehumanizing vulnerable groups of people. People on the right are the ones delighting over the idea that alligators would be eating immigrants alive. It's people on the right who are delighting in the world's poorest who are starving to death because we ended USAID. Those are the ones saying, we got to take care of our own first. It's the right that dehumanizes trans people in this country using all kinds of awful slurs. Look at Nancy Mace. Day after day after day, she does her damnedest to come out and find an excuse to use slurs against trans Americans and to dehumanize them. Charlie Kirk repeatedly said that Black people, in his eyes, especially Black women, were not as intelligent and that they were better off before civil rights. He said he wouldn't get on a plane if the pilot was Black. I mean, even if you just look at the way the right continually dehumanizes anybody who's like politically centrist or slightly left, right? They love to call any woman who's a Democrat a blue-haired liberal. They love to call any woman who is anywhere to the left of them. I'm talking like, we're not talking radical leftists, just anyone who is not performing conservative Republican womanhood. Right? Any woman who doesn't perform passivity, docility, and is not willing to, posture herself as like simultaneously a helpmeet and also like my smoking hot wife. She gets told she smells like cat piss. She gets told that she is all kinds of, the things I get called by right-wing men on one of Zuck's platforms. Just the most vile, dehumanizing things. It's people on the right who consistently use rhetoric that dehumanizes other people because it's much easier to justify violence against your fellow Americans, against your fellow human beings, against your neighbors and your own family members, right? Because we are seeing in the wake of this Charlie Kirk thing, we're seeing people posting on social media about how their uncles, their parents, their grandparents, their blood is spewing the most hateful, violent, like just unbelievable, cruel things at them because they aren't posting videos sobbing about Charlie Kirk's death. And right, it's easier to fantasize about committing violence against your own kin when you belong to a political movement that consistently dehumanizes anybody who does not ascribe to your version of politics and your worldview. This is why I so consistently say one of the crucial elements of helping us get out of this is that we have got to remember their humanity and we have got to remind them of ours. That's why I don't think we should take people on the political right and call them monsters. I don't think we should dehumanize them. They are human beings. We need to understand how it is that they got radicalized for the alt-right, but also that we understand that most people who voted for Donald Trump, they're not diehard MAGA. They're definitely not right of MAGA. Right of MAGA, where Charlie Kirk's alleged shooter may be. When we look at all of what's happening now and the way that the Trump regime is really anxious to try and pin this on the radical left or like radical Democrats, bitch, please. Chuck Schumer has not radicalized a single person for anything in his entire life. The Democratic establishment is the complete opposite of radical. They just want to serve the interests of what, like Israel and, billionaires. Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, Ken Martin at the DNC, they ain't radicalizing shit. They're all about reinforcing the establishment. So no, nobody's getting radicalized over there. But what we're seeing is this obvious attempt from JD Shorty Pants Vance, Donald Trump, the Republican Party as a whole, to create basically a war between Republicans and Democrats. They are trying to use this to divide the working class even further than we are already divided in this country. They want the right to dehumanize their neighbors, their family members, anybody who is politically to the left of them, even if they're not politically on the left. You want to talk about stochastic terrorism, you want to talk about violent rhetoric, it all comes from the right. And again, if we're looking at the data, JD Vance, if we're looking at the facts of the situation, it's not just the rhetoric, the actual violence overwhelmingly comes from the far right. I know I said earlier this year that MAGA Christianity has become a religion of power, grievance, and retribution. It is a movement full of hate and discontent. And the billionaires backing the Trump regime, they are stoking that sentiment, right? They want people on the right to be angry at their fellow working class Americans, to take their rage out on their fellow working class Americans so that they will not realize the source of their anger, the source of their discontent, the source of their oppression is Donald Trump, is Elon Musk, is the oligarchy. I would love nothing better than for working class Americans to have an all-out war with each other so that they can continue to dismantle our democracy while we are distracted, harming our family and friends and neighbors. I want to conclude here by showing you a clip of something Donald Trump said the other morning on Fox News because it's very telling.
Radicals on the right as well. We have radicals on the left. People are watching all of these videos and cheering. Some people are cheering that Charlie was killed. How do we fix this country? How do we come back together?
I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. They don't want to see crime.
Worried about the border.
They're saying, we don't want these people coming in. We don't want you burning our shopping centers. We don't want you shooting our people in the middle of the street. The radicals on the left are the problem. And they're vicious and they're horrible and they're politically savvy.
That was Donald Trump, the president of the United States, saying he couldn't care less about political violence and that he doesn't care about political violence on the right. And then he spewed a bunch of, again, post-truth politics. The facts of the matter are inconsequential. In fact, the facts of the matter get in the way of the rhetoric of the propaganda of the regime. When we see people on the far right commit violence, it's not because they're upset about immigrants. Immigrants aren't burning shopping centers and shooting people in the streets. We could get into a discussion as to why it is that especially young white men on the right are so hell-bent on committing violence, including the political violence that we saw committed against Charlie Kirk. I think we should. That's why I want to have more conversations about how we combat nihilism in this country and that we don't skirt over the very real issues that have radicalized so many young white men, because they actually are suffering. They actually have a lot of anger for legitimate reasons. They're just taught to blame women and Black people and immigrants instead of understanding, again, the source of their oppression is the super rich. But then at the end of that clip, we have Donald Trump absolutely stoking up violence against the left, painting this false picture, claiming people on the political left are dangerous. When they just want you to sign their petition for universal health care and they want free school lunch for kids. When we use the term stochastic terrorism, that's what we're talking about. that kind of rhetoric.